What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another monthly wrap-up video. Today, we've got 7 movies from the month of April that I'll be discussing and ranking from worst to best. We have a diverse range of films and plenty to talk about, so let's dive right in without any further delay. Starting with my number 7, the movie I enjoyed the least in April, The Pope's Exorcist. Now, this film was decent. As someone who isn't a huge fan of exorcism movies, mainly because they often feel redundant and repetitive ever since the original Exorcist, this one caught my attention due to Russell Crowe's involvement. I walked in with low expectations, hoping that one of the greatest actors of our time could bring something fresh to the table, and I was pleasantly surprised by how much fun this movie was. The Pope's Exorcist sets itself apart from other exorcism films with its lighthearted and self-aware tone. It knows what it is and doesn't take itself too seriously, which I appreciated. I found myself enjoying it more than I expected, even though I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to many people or consider watching it again. That being said, the film does eventually fall into some of the same tropes and cliches that plague other exorcism movies, which prevents it from truly rising above the pack. However, thanks to Russell Crowe's performance, his character, and some unique aspects of the story, I can't deny that I had a fairly good time watching it. At number 6, we have Ari Aster's latest film, Beau Is Afraid, which caused quite the stir on Twitter. So far, my thoughts on Ari Aster's films have been mixed. I enjoyed Hereditary quite a bit as a modern horror classic, but I wasn't as big a fan of Midsommar for several reasons. When it came to Beau Is Afraid, I hadn't seen the full trailer, but I knew it would be a strange movie. Despite my mixed feelings about Aster's work, his quality as a director earned my willingness to give this film a chance. Beau Is Afraid is a 3-hour metaphoric fever dream where Joaquin Phoenix plays a neurotic, anxiety-driven main character who is afraid of just about everything, hence the title. The film follows his odyssey to get home to his mother after discovering she's been killed. Along the way, he meets various characters and encounters bizarre situations. The film is unique, visually creative, and well-directed. There's a lot of merit to be found in it, and I can appreciate and acknowledge that. However, it just wasn't for me. The specific style of humor didn't resonate with me, and I found the film to be overly long. If it had been 2 hours instead of 3, I might have walked away with a more positive review. Now, the reactions to my thoughts on Beau Is Afraid have been extreme, with some accusing me of only liking mainstream movies and others questioning why I even bothered watching it. The discourse surrounding Ari Aster's films can be frustrating at times, but thankfully, there are still plenty of reasonable viewers who can understand differing opinions. In conclusion, Beau Is Afraid is a thought-provoking film with many merits, but it ultimately wasn't my cup of tea. If you're a fan of Ari Aster or enjoy offbeat dark humor, you might want to give it a shot. Moving on to number 5, I managed to squeeze in a 90-minute movie called SISU, and I must say, I really appreciate the straightforward 90-minute experience. It felt like a palate cleanser, especially after watching something like Beau Is Afraid. Can we re-normalize 90-minute movies? It seems like we're moving away from that more often than we should. SISU has been described as a Finnish John Wick with Nazis, and that's a pretty accurate description. The movie follows a gold miner in the mid-1940 SS as World War II is wrapping up, and the Nazis are still occupying Finland. The first half of the movie involves the Nazis coming after him for the gold, and the second half has him going after the Nazis to get the gold back. It's a simple, fast-paced, gore-filled action movie, and if that sounds intriguing to you, you'll probably enjoy it. I loved the violent action aspect of the film, but it didn't completely win me over. The action was mostly in the first and third acts, with the second act slowing down quite a bit. I appreciated the practical effects and gore, but the character development left me wanting more. The main character is incredibly simple, with only a few lines of dialogue throughout the entire movie. I wanted more depth from his character, and unfortunately, that aspect fell short. Another issue I had with the film was the unrealistic nature of the main character's survival throughout the movie. The character endures situations that no human could realistically survive, and it took me out of the experience. In a more grounded, gritty movie like SISU, these moments felt out of place. Overall, I had a pretty good time with SISU. If you're a fan of action movies, particularly ultra-violent ones, you'll probably enjoy it as well. I don't think it'll become a massive hit or start a franchise like John Wick, but it's a fun way to spend 90 minutes. SISU! Coming in at number 4 is the Super Mario Bros. Movie, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I had a great time watching this with my kids, and I look forward to watching it again with them when it comes to home video. The film delivered a lot of what I would want from a Mario movie. I liked the animation, the humor, and the way it covered various aspects of the Mario franchise, including Mario Party, Mario Kart, and different eras of Mario games. Both my kids and I, as someone who has been playing Mario games since I was very young, really enjoyed the film. However, I did have a mixed experience with the voice acting. Charlie Day and Jack Black were standout performers, and Chris Pratt did a better job as Mario than many people expected. That being said, I don't think he was the best possible version of Mario we could have gotten. Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong was a casting choice that I didn't particularly enjoy, but I don't blame Rogen for this. He has been upfront about not doing voices, so the fact that Donkey Kong sounds like Seth Rogen is more of a studio issue than his fault. While it was charming to hear Rogen's laugh coming from Donkey Kong, there wasn't any real voice acting involved. Additionally, there were several instances of ill-placed music throughout the movie, featuring overplayed songs from the 80s and 90s that I could have done without. While the film doesn't have a deep storyline or impactful themes like some Pixar films, it is a very kid-centric movie that both my children and I enjoyed. Coming in at number 3 is Evil Dead Rise, which was the big release of April that I was really looking forward to. As a casual fan of the Evil Dead films, I can say that the franchise has been quite consistent in delivering what you expect and maintaining a certain level of quality. Evil Dead Rise continues this trend. This standalone movie focuses on a family in a high-rise apartment who come into possession of one of the 3 Necronomicons from Army of Darkness, resulting in the usual Evil Dead chaos. The change of setting and focus on a family with young children provided a fresh take on the franchise, as the usual films involve teenagers and adults. With children in danger, the stakes are even higher. The central performance by the actress playing the mother and main Deadite was excellent, making her one of the most memorable Deadites in the entire franchise. The film stayed true to Evil Dead's ultra-gory and hyper-violent nature, though it was not as extreme as the 2013 movie. In the context of modern horror, it is still a pretty gory film. What I felt was missing from Evil Dead Rise was more character development, especially since the film focused on a family and young kids. Although character-driven stories are not the main focus of Evil Dead films, the change of dynamic warranted a deeper connection to the characters. The film didn't provide this, which made it harder to genuinely care about the characters.
What will be.
Coming in at number 2 is Renfield, and I had an absolute blast with this film. Just like Evil Dead, it advertised something and delivered exactly what it promised. All I needed to know was that it featured Nicolas Cage as Dracula, and I was sold. I think Nicholas Hoult does a great job as the lead, Renfield, and of course, Nicolas Cage as Dracula is something I never knew I needed, but I'm glad I have it now. The movie has a great sense of humor, and it's hyper-violent to a comedic degree, which I really enjoyed. The only aspect I didn't like so much was the Awkwafina mob family storyline. I've never really cared for Awkwafina as an actress, and her sense of humor doesn't work for me. The mob family villains didn't do much for me either, so whenever the movie focused on their story, I lost interest a bit. However, the majority of the film is about Renfield and Dracula, and I appreciated how it cleverly weaves in commentary on toxic relationships and gaining the strength to get out of them. It does so in a natural way that doesn't feel like the message comes before the story. So, if the idea of Nicolas Cage as Dracula doesn't entice you to watch this movie, I hope my recommendation will, because I had a really good time with this one. Coming in at number 1 is Ben Affleck's Air. I won't talk about this one too much since I discussed it last month. I love Ben Affleck as a filmmaker, and the only thing I didn't like about his time as Batman is that it took him away from giving us more movies. Air is a really nice return to form for him and tells a fascinating story that I wasn't very familiar with. For those who don't know, I'm not a sports fan, but I love a good sports movie because I appreciate compelling stories. There are many great stories to be told throughout sports history, and Air tells the story of Nike as an underdog company and Michael Jordan as an underdog player. It's a non-traditional underdog story about a company trying to align their goals with a rising basketball star to create a shoe line that would change sports contracts forever. The movie has a great cast, and it's the funniest movie I've seen in 2023 so far. Even if you're not a sports fan, the story elements should be interesting enough to hold your attention. It's one of the best movies I've seen this year, and unless we have an incredibly strong year for the rest of 2023, it's likely to be on my best of the year list. That wraps up this ranking. If you enjoyed it, please check out the playlist of all my 2023 new release reviews and my March ranking. Like, share, and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss future content.